it goes hand in hand with playing drums, right? When you're playing drums in a band, you kind of got to listen to everybody, to what they're doing, and kind of be that foundation to just hold them there and make sure that they don't fall or falter or whatnot. And so I think for me, it's just being an all around good person, a good band member, and someone that all the other band members can um, kind of count on and lean on. Just knowing that you're not gonna you're not gonna let the ground fall underneath them.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters on That podcast. I'm your host Brian, and join me today, Kelly Kusumoto. How you doing, brother?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Where are you at?
I'm about 15 minutes, 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, really? You're a Pennsylvania guy too.
Yeah, I'm not originally, but life has brought me here. So yeah,
That's sweet.
now
I was gonna say how you loving it.
I love it. I think it's great. It's weird. My wife and I have been on this journey. So we're originally from Los Angeles,
Hmm.
and then we moved to New York, and then came down here. And we were in Fishtown for a while, which is kind of like I guess, Philly's version of Brooklyn. And then when the pandemic hit and there was all those riots and whatnot, and we have a, at the time, our daughter was 1, and, it was just a little bit too close, all that ruckus. So we decided to make the move to the burbs, and we love it. Yeah, it's awesome.
That's really good to hear, and I think we're gonna have some interesting stories. I got some questions here for you, and shout out to Rich West. He actually recommended you to me, so thank you so much, Rich.
Yeah, Rich is awesome.
Yep. All right, got the questions right here. Are you ready, brother?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So, first question. Tell us a little bit about your drum history. How did you get into drumming?
Drum history. Okay, well, my uncle was a pro, so he was playing for James Taylor. His name was Carlos Vega when he was alive. So I think he met my aunt, I would say, when I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. And my family's already pretty musical. My aunt, she sang for a band called Hiroshima, which is kind of like a jazz pop Japanese band.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure if that's how they met, but in any case, my family has a lot of music history, and so she married him. And pretty much my first concert, I think, was around when I was 10 years old. It was James Taylor. I was able to watch him backstage and see my uncle playing the drums, and then looking out and seeing, probably like 10,000 people just going crazy. Yeah, it makes an impression on a little kid. So I think that night I probably went home and made a drum set full of pots and pans and chopsticks and whatnot. And then, but it wasn't until maybe a couple of years later that I actually got my first set and started playing. So I was probably about like 12 when I really started to play seriously. I had a couple of friends in school that were in the jazz band. And so I tried out for the jazz band, made the jazz band, and ever since then was in jazz all throughout high school. And growing up in LA, there's all kinds of bands. I was in punk bands and rock bands and whatnot. So yeah, I've been playing ever since. I think it's actually 30 years this year. So it's been a while.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's where I got my start. Was just watching my uncle, and then kind of learning a little bit from him. He was always out of town, so I didn't really get any kind of formal lessons, more like tips and stuff. But yeah, I learned a lot through jazz class, and just geeking out on Modern Drummer and just listening to my favorite drummers and bands and whatnot, and trying to play along to them.
That's good to hear. And it does actually make an interesting love story if that's how your aunt and uncle actually met. So
Yeah,
might actually make it into a Hollywood movie one of these days.
maybe.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Did you play any other instruments before getting into drums? Because I'm looking at your wall right there, and I'm thinking I see a bass, and is that a guitar behind you?
Yeah, so well, I started singing when I was maybe 6 years old. My dad played guitar and sang to my sister and I. And interesting enough, I never once equated him playing guitar to me wanting to play guitar. I never picked up a guitar until after I learned the drums. But I sang the whole time. I don't know if I'd necessarily call myself a singer, but I love to sing. So that was like pretty much my first instrument, I guess. And then drums. And then when I was playing in a bunch of different bands, the music was good, but to me it wasn't doing what I needed music to do. So I kind of just was like, I'll just start learning guitar and bass and start writing my own songs. And that was kind of the impetus to learn how to play guitar and bass and a little bit of keyboard. So so I play those instruments, not nearly as well as the drums, but I try.
That's good to hear. I guess, do you try to incorporate, do maybe like bass covers or guitar covers at times on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, there's a couple of videos that I have on my channel where I'm doing both bass and guitar and all four: bass, guitar, drums, and singing.
He does it all. He's his one-man band. There we go.
I try to have fun. That's the main thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that we've always said in this drumming community is just have fun. Of course, you run into the bad people who always have to badmouth you in the worst possible way. Not sure if you're part of that conversation, but it was funny with this one guy, but we're not going to get into that. But to the next one. Is your kid nearby by any chance?
What was that?
Your kid. Is it behind you at all, or is it in a different room?
Yeah, let me see if I could...
There she be.
There it is. So that is a DW Design Series. I think the standard is a 5-piece with the snare drum. I ended up getting the 4-piece without the snare drum and then adding the smaller floor tom. So I've got 10, 12, 14, 16, and I think it's an 18 by 22 bass drum.
That's sweet. Is that the kit you had for a good while, or is that a recently new one?
It's pretty new. I bought it, I would say Christmas 2020. So it's about a year and a half old.
Is it like straight acoustic, or is it a hybrid of electric and it looks like an acoustic kind of set?
Yeah, it's straight up acoustic. I got a couple of triggers. I got a trigger on the bass drum and on the snare for whenever I do like really poppy songs that use electronic drums. I like to sub the bass or not sub, but actually complement the bass and the snare with some electronic sounds.
I see. Did you ever have like an electric drum kit before?
Yeah, I had the one of the original Roland V drum kits. I think it was the TD7 or something like that back in 2007, 8ish. Wasn't really for me. I know they've gone leaps and bounds a lot better since then. But yeah, it's just something about the acoustic. It's like I kind of equate it to learning how to drive stick shift before you learn how to drive a automatic. The mechanisms, learning a stick, you understand the way the car drives a little bit better. And I feel like that's the same with drums. Like, if you learn acoustic drums, you can play electric drums. But sometimes I feel like if you learn the electric drums, you might learn some bad habits that won't translate to acoustic drums. So for me, I'm more of a traditionally acoustic guy. I'll never say never. Like I won't say I'll never play an acoustic kit. But if I had a preference, it would be acoustic over electric.
I see. I guess, would you ever consider maybe mushing it all together? I know it looks like you're tight on space, but one of the questions I've always asked drummers if they had like both an electric and an acoustic kit is if they would use the electric for like percussion samples or whatever, and then mush it all together, kind of make it like a Neil Peart kind of set. Would that be something you consider?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's some Latin stuff that I play, and it would definitely cut the set down. Not having congas and bongos and claves and cowbells and all of that nonsense. I definitely don't have the room for that. So, Yeah, I mean, if I ever felt the need to have that kind of stuff, I would definitely use the electric over the acoustic. Plus, with when you're playing, I guess Latin rock, I guess whatever is the example that comes to my head. And you're playing sticks on the drum kit, and you want a conga sound. Unless you grow a third hand or a fourth hand or whatever, it's kind of hard to do conga sounds when you got sticks in your hand. So, yeah, it'd be a lot easier if I just use pads.
Yeah, that'd be like all the octopus hands where it's got like three arms on each side and it's just all playing at once. And just
Yeah,
lightning fast speed and stuff like that.
yeah,
Explosions everywhere, that sort of thing.
yeah, like a Matrix scene.
Yeah. Actually, it's like
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
thing. There we go. All right. So, get into influences. Who would you consider to be your biggest influences? And if you want to list any other influencers, go ahead.
Sure. My biggest influence obviously would be my uncle. He, to me, I categorize drummers in two categories. One is the guys that are a little bit more subtle and just really solid and smooth and groovy, and then there are the guys that are just really technical. There's obviously people that are in the middle, but then you got the guys that are really technical, like Thomas Lang, who is just like almost like a machine. So those are two spectrums. A lot of drummers are kind of in the middle. I kind of lean towards the guys that like to groove a little bit more, that are real subtle, that use space over sound, I guess. And my uncle is kind of in that realm where he used a lot of space, a lot of silence to fill in the blanks, so to speak. And But at the same time, he could go crazy if he needed to. Like I remember watching James Taylor and listening to all the records that he was recorded on. A lot of the stuff is very basic, very groovy. But when he would go into his garage and or not garage, but like he had his own little sound room, and he would play jazz, and he would like kind of just go off. Nobody really got to see that side of him. So he could really go off. And the same thing with guys like Jeff Porcaro. Vinnie Colaiuta obviously is a little bit more showy than my uncle and Jeff Porcaro, but they're all kind of in the same school of groove comes first, the music comes first, ego comes second, and trying to show that all these chops or whatever is not as important as playing to the music and making sure that everybody else is being able to be heard, that kind of thing. So those are the kind of drummers that influence me, or the ones that are a lot more subtle. And you kind of got to pay attention and listen and see what they're doing and what they're not doing. Don't get me wrong. I love the guys that are showy. I love the guys that play a lot. The Neil Peart obviously is one that comes to mind. Tim Alexander from Primus, the early Primus days, those types of guys. Danny Carey from Tool. So I take a bit of from everyone, but if I had to say, I would lean more towards just like guys that know how to groove.
I see, yeah. And teach his own too. But yeah, everybody's kind of listening to those influences too, with Danny Carey, Neil Peart, Mike Potroy, and a little bit of Mike Mangini. They don't seem to give Mangini much credit in the community here, so not sure why, but I guess Potroy just had that feeling to it, I guess, but whatever. Yours was actually interesting, but I think it's studio. I think the correct term is studio. He would go into the studio in order to practice out his chops and everything too, so if that's what he would call it. So
yeah.
Yours was interesting because mostly just people just list off the names and everything. They just say like they incorporate the styles into their own. So yours seemed to include the groovy funk and everything instead of just seeing how it works and then just mush it all together and practice over time and see where it goes, that sort of thing. So yours is interesting. So that's pretty cool. But all right, let's see. What kind of sticks do you use for your drum kit?
So as long as they're 5B wood tip, I'm not picky. I was using ProMark for a long time just because I felt like they don't chip or break as much. But I actually just bought a value pack of Vic Firths, and it's just weird. I feel like if you change it up once in a while, like when I changed from, I think I was using Vader for a long time. When I changed from Vader to ProMark, the ProMark sticks felt new and nice, and there was like a refreshment kind of thing going on. And then playing ProMarks kind of got stale, so I got these Vic Firths, and I've been playing along with those, and it's like, oh, Vic Firths are nice. So I don't think any one is better than the other. There's just a different feel. And, some people, they don't need that or whatever, but I feel like changing it up once in a while adds a little bit of spunk to what can get somewhat ordinary. So, but for me, like I don't ever really go into any different sizes, like 5A or 7A or 2B or whatever. 5B is like the sweet spot for me, and as long as it's 5B, it could be whatever. It could be a no-name brand. It could be Zildjian, ProMark, whatever. I'll play it. I'm not picky when it comes to name brands.
Because which one are you using right now? Is it Vic Firth?
Vic Firth, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I can see what you mean too, because it sounds like if it was like the same style stick that I'm using, because I use Vic Firth as well, I feel like I'd probably be in the same boat as you. I'd be like, if it's that kind of, I think it's 5B too, but regardless, I think if it was that, then I'd be like, yeah, I can get used to this, and then just kind of roll with it too. So I see what you mean. So
yeah,
good choice. So, what do you love most about drumming?
Most. I mean, there's so many things to love. I would say what I love most is that, with all the other instruments, I feel like you can play on your own. With drums, you can play on your own, but it's just not as interesting, I guess. It's so much more interesting when you play with other people. So I feel like that's probably what I love the most about drums is everywhere I've gone in my life, the places that I've lived and the people that I've met and whatnot, a lot of it came through knowing how to play drums. Different band members, different engineers, and just people in the music industry, all the people that I've been able to meet and kind of network with and whatnot, and the places that the drums has taken me, I feel like that's probably the coolest thing. Obviously, there's other things like, it's just cathartic and very therapeutic to play drums just by themselves and whatnot. But really, it's the people that the drums have brought me to that I think is probably the most special to me. I've met people from 30 years ago that I still keep in touch with, just because of our love of music and like, fortunately, I've been a decent enough drummer to be able to be in a ton of bands, and a lot of my band members from the past, we still all talk. So even if it has nothing to do with drums, it's because of the drums that I met these people. So and then the whole YouTube thing, meeting different drummers and musicians from around the world. I mean, it's crazy. I didn't have YouTube when I was growing up learning how to play. I don't even know what that world would have been like, being a teen, having YouTube and meeting all these different drummers and learning from them and whatnot. And so just to have the YouTube, just different people, the way that drums brings us all together, I think it's probably the coolest thing about drums.
Yeah, most people do say drumming is more therapeutic, especially since I think a lot of us were doing multiple jobs at once, as well as trying to do the YouTube channel at once. You tend to find a little bit of a break here and there and doing songs that you really wanted to cover for a good while. So I can see why. Get into your cover bands that you talk about. Was this ones you formed in LA and New York? And did you ever form any in PA?
So I was in a cover band in Los Angeles. They played all kinds of stuff from jazz to classic rock to modern pop to Latin stuff. So that's where I pretty much learned how to play different Latin beats, which was actually really cool. I think Latin is probably the hardest for me to play just because of all the syncopation that's going on. Some of the downbeats are not on one. So it's a weird kind of feeling when you're so used to rock and roll and everything is downbeats. In Latin, it's a completely different feel. Jazz, at least there's some sort of like similarity to rock and roll, but Latin is so different. Latin and reggae, it's a little bit simpler, so it's easier to learn, even though the downbeat is on the 3 and it's kind of foreign. Latin, I mean, you've got downbeats on the upbeats, and it's just a weird type of music. So learning how to play that when I was young in a cover band in Los Angeles, that was really helpful. And then when I moved to New York, the only band I played in New York was a cover band. And then out here in PA, the reason why I even started my YouTube channel was because I couldn't really find anything out here that I wanted to play. It's a little bit harder to find. I think the bands in Philly are niche, like they're either metal or they're hip hop, and there's not really too much in between. You got cover bands here and there, and I just, at the time, when I was thinking about joining a band, I was working a lot and being able to like tend to a schedule and lugging my gear around. I'm in my 40s now. I'm not like I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So I was just like, like maybe I'll just throw up a drum cover on YouTube and see what happens. And that was 3 years ago, and now I've been doing Cam Can Drum for 3 years, and I get my drum fix from that. I don't feel the need to really play in a band anymore. So, but like I said, I'll never say never. If the right opportunity came along, I'd certainly consider it.
I see. That's pretty cool too. And you say you still stick in touch with your friends that you played with in LA and New York?
Yeah. There's a lot of good relationships that formed when I was playing in LA, especially. I played with a punk band that got a lot of notoriety, and we almost got signed to Epitaph Records, and that deal fell through because we were going back and forth too much. And usually what a new band does is just sign the entry level contract, but our guitar player worked for Epitaph, so he kind of knew what not to agree to. So we were going back and forth, and I think it just took too long for them. And actually, when our negotiations fell through, they went and signed the Refuse. So I like to kind of jab my guitar player and say, hey, we could have been the Refused if you would have just signed that entry contract. But yeah, so I was in a couple of punk bands in LA. I was in a band called Oscar, who was on Epitaph Records. I got to do a little bit of touring with them and recorded on their second album. That was really cool. So, and then my guitar player from the previous punk band, he was also a producer. So he produced a bunch of records for Epitaph, Oscar being one of the bands that he produced. So I would record at Epitaph's main studio, which was West Beach Recorders in Hollywood. And we got to meet guys like Donald Cameron, who back in the early 90s was like the guy to go to if you were a punk rock band. So he would record guys like NoFX, Lagwagon, Propagandhi, a lot of the Fat Records punk bands he recorded. He also recorded us. And going from punk into rock, using the same producer, my buddy, he recorded a lot of our rock bands and at the same studio. So we got a lot of really quality studio time. And a lot of those guys I still talk to today. Another guy that I talk to a lot is Rick from this band called the Woolly Bandits, and they're a pretty good, pretty big garage band in the LA scene. I played with them for a bit, toured with them for a little bit, and then spent a little bit of time in Houston. Joined a hard rock. I don't know if I'd necessarily call them metal, but they were definitely hard rock, kind of like a Deftones sounding band. And they had songs on Houston radio, and I still talk to them. That was probably 15, 20 years ago. And then, yeah, some of the guys from my cover band in New York, I still talk to them as well. So, yeah, just I think part of it is also just, being, I guess, not agreeable, but just being a nice guy, someone who gets along with everybody. That's part of being a good band member. I also play hockey, so it's a team sport. Hockey, you're really close knit. You got to know what everyone else is thinking because it's like such a fast sport, and you just got to get along. Like if you disagree with certain things, you got to work it out. If you disagree with things outside of the rink or outside of the rehearsal room, you kind of just throw it in the back and focus on your goal, which, if it's hockey, your goal is to win the game. If it's music, your goal is to create great music and just focus on that. And so for me, it's just like you throw all the junk away and you just focus on your goal and try to be just a good person. I think it goes hand in hand with playing drums, right? When you're playing drums in a band, you kind of got to listen to everybody, to what they're doing, and kind of be that foundation to just hold them there and make sure that they don't fall or falter or whatnot. And so I think for me, it's just being an all-around good person, a good band member, and someone that all the other band members can kind of count on and lean on. Just knowing that you're not gonna let the ground fall underneath them.
That's a damn good analogy too. But actually, I was getting very close to do this.
Yeah.
There we go. No, you're good. You're good. But anyway, do you do ice hockey or deck hockey?
Ice hockey.
Ice hockey too. That's pretty sweet. Is it something you just recently picked up, or was it one I guess you found in one of the places you've been to?
No, I've been playing since right around the same time I started playing drums. I started playing hockey. So yeah, it's been about 30 years as well.
That's pretty sweet. You guys get a little physical at times?
Yeah, once in a while. I mean, it's not allowed on the ice, but some guys get ultra competitive, and when you're fighting for that puck, you're just gonna bump into guys once in a while. So yeah, it can get a little bit chippy. But once the game's over, you get in that line and you shake their hand and you say good game, and that's it.
Drop the gloves and put them out.
Yeah. Sometimes the gloves drop. I haven't dropped my gloves probably in 15, 20 years. So wow. I'm a smaller guy, so I just kind of like let the bigger guys take care of that.
Yes, all the Zdeno Charas of the group there, they'll fight each other out. Let the Goliath handle it. So there we go. That's pretty sweet. And that's actually interesting. I think you're the only one so far that's done like a sport that's, wouldn't say professionally, but at least you're playing it still. So something like that. So I would say that's definitely an interesting story. So, man, it looks like you keep yourself pretty busy too, because you got an extensive network in LA, even Houston, New York. Kind of wish you would find something here. I think you would find something eventually, because one of the ones I used was a band mix to find like musicians in around my neck of the woods. And I had joined a cover group, just did a couple sessions with them, and it didn't last very long before they moved on to a different drummer, but that was something that was life-changing for me. I guess back then, obviously, we didn't have the internet and everything, so was it like looking for ads and stuff that would be on the telephone poles and say like, hey, come check out this cover group down here and see what you're made of? Was it kind of like that?
Yeah, I think when I was in my first punk band, the the bass player of that band wanted to start another band. So we put an ad in what was called the Recycler. I'm not sure if that was a nationwide paper, but yeah, we put an ad on Recycler, and the one guy that answered that ad is now one of my best friends. So that was about 30 years ago as well. He's been probably in, I would say, a dozen of the bands that I've been in, and yeah, we've gone back and forth a lot. He lives in San Antonio now. He's got a thriving marketing business, but he's also in a cover band in San Antonio, and he also has a YouTube channel for guitar. And actually, I do all the editing for his videos on that YouTube channel, and we got invited to this year's NAMM show. So we both flew out to LA and did the NAMM show there, and recorded everything. I'm probably going to edit the video and put it up in the next couple of weeks or so. But yeah, it's that's all because of the Recycler back in 1997, I want to say.
I don't think it is nationwide. I didn't think so, but I know Kerry King from Slayer, he had mentioned about it too, and that was when they're out in California. So
okay,
I guess when you did the Recycler, was it in California as well, or was this
yeah.
Okay, I think it might have been just California. I don't know, but regardless, it's kind of a small world whenever you think about it too. Do you and your buddy, do you guys ever get together, do collaborations together?
Yeah, once in a while. He, let's see, what was it? There was a couple of videos on my channel that have him on it, and then a couple of videos on his channel where I'm on the videos playing drums.
I see. That's pretty good. Let's get into your YouTube channel. When did you start it? And I guess, is there something you hope to achieve with it?
Yeah, so I started it in 2017, I believe. Either late 2016 or early 2017, something like that. And I started it for two reasons. One, like I said before, I didn't really find anything I wanted to join out here, but I had my own drum room in my house, so I was lucky enough to have that. So I'd set up my drums, and I was like, oh, well, I'll just play a cover song, record it, put it on YouTube, and see what happens. And I got a bunch of comments and guys wanting to, introduce themselves and whatnot. And back in 2016-17, there was a community on Google called All Classic Drum Covers. So Tony Hammerline and Michael Perry, I think, were the ones that started it. And yeah, there was probably about, I would say, 100, 150 people in this group. And it was just a great way of meeting a bunch of new guys that were all on YouTube and kind of just learning from them and getting to know them and whatnot. And it was, yeah, I didn't really expect much at all. I actually wasn't a fan of YouTube because from about 2006, when they really started to get some steam going, to about 2012, 13 or so, there was a lot of negativity on YouTube. It was kind of like a trash place. But since then, they've really kind of cleaned it up. It's gotten a lot more reputable, I guess, for not just viewers, but for content creators and whatnot. So, and just getting to know all of these quality guys. It didn't matter like what level of drummer you were, whether you were like super pro or just beginning. Everybody was just so cool. I mean, there was some drama that happened a little bit, but for the most part, everyone was just super cool. And to me, everyone was awesome, just totally supportive and whatnot. So that was part of the reason why I kept going with the YouTube channel. And the other reason was because I have two kids now, and I always had the thought in my head, like even when I was a kid, that everybody has a story. And I wished that there was YouTube 1,000 years ago, so that I could see what great 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 grandpa was doing back then. Such isn't the case, but we have it now, and so I put all different types of things on YouTube, not just music, but I also do interviews. I interview other musicians as well. I do lessons, and once in a while, I'll just shoot the. I don't know if you can say bad words, but I'll just spew out whatever it is that's going on in my mind, because I'm trying to catalog sort of my life and my points of view and my opinions and whatnot, so that later on down the line, when my grandkids, great grandkids, or whatever, want to know more about Grandpa Kelly, they can just hop on YouTube and check out all the stuff that's on there. So it's kind of a cool thing to be able to, I guess, communicate for generations down the line.
Yeah, so there's a diary of sorts. So it's able to tell you, like, hey, this is what songs your grandfather had played, and just had fun with it too, as well as being able to interact, assuming they'll be able to see the comments and everything. So
Yeah.
stuff like that. Did you deal with a lot of negativity in the beginning too, or was yours mostly friendly, and then you kind of took any negative comments and turned into a source of strength?
So I can probably count on one hand the negative comments, but those negative comments actually, I think, do more than the positive comments. Positive comments I love, of course, and it builds a bond between a lot of the drummers that I talk to. But it's the negative ones that I really try to kind of dissect. And, for me, like, you could tell me how it is, like in reality, and I'm not gonna get offended by it. I'm not gonna get butt hurt or whatever. I'm actually gonna try to look at it from that person's point of view, and if they have a valid point of view, then obviously I'm gonna take it into consideration on something that I need to change. But most of the time it's just somebody trolling, or just somebody's trying to start something, and usually I'm able to suss that out pretty quickly, and then I just kind of ignore them after that. But for the ones that have like a legitimate reason to critique me, then yeah, for sure, I take a look at it. I try to change it if it is something that's wrong with me, because we're all human, we all are flawed in some sense, and for me, I just want to get better as a person and as a drummer, and the only way you're going to do that is if people kind of point out the things that you're doing wrong, especially if you don't see it.
Yeah, the trolls are especially terrible too, because is it more like you click on their username, or I guess the little thumbnail, and then you try to see if they had a similar video, and is that something you do, and you try to see if they did something better than you, or is it you see the subscriber count and it's like, nope, you guys are just messing around here, I don't know what you're trying to prove here, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, for the trolls, yeah, it's usually someone that has less than 10 subscribers, no videos, and they're just trying to I don't know, I don't even, to me, I can't even get into that headspace. For me, if I see anything that's not a good quality, there's a certain way that I approach that. I think it's common sense to say, hey, look, here are the good things about your video and about your playing and whatnot, but you could work on this or this or this, and this is why. Don't just like say something stupid like, oh yeah, this isn't for me, your timing sucks or whatever. Like, actually be constructive about it. And some people just either, for whatever reason, don't have the time, or all they want to do is focus on the very negative part. And I think that's like such the wrong approach. Like, if you really wanted to be the better person, then offer up your advice. Don't just complain, but actually offer a solution for that complaint. And I think a lot of people just don't do that.
And you'd be correct. It's a lot of people just want to live in the drama sort of thing. So that's such a good response. So good on you, buddy. All right, so let's jump into COVID a little bit. I guess how bad did it affect you, your family, and community? Because you were in PA already at the time, right?
Yeah. We were in Philly, so Philly was pretty strict about COVID. Luckily, so my position on the whole thing is I don't want to say anti-mask, but I am. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, I'm not either way. Like whatever suits you, it's fine with me. Just give me the same courtesy because whenever I don't need to wear a mask, I'm not going to wear one. I have a 3-year-old and a almost 9-month-old, and I've been fortunate to not have to put masks on either of them. So what I mean by that is when COVID hit, my daughter was right around 2 years old. So she was asking to go to school. She was in that stage of just wanting to expand beyond mom and dad. And living in Philly, all the schools were masks all the time, even outdoors and whatnot. And to me, I just had this feeling inside that it was not something I wanted my daughter to do. I didn't want her to wear a mask all the time. I feel like there's a lot of things that go on developmentally when you're learning how to, read expressions, when you're learning how to talk, all of that kind of thing. So we kind of held off from sending her to school. And then, like I said before, the rioting started happening. And this was literally like, if you see Fishtown, Kensington is the very next town. We were at the border of Fishtown and Kensington. And Kensington, if you look up Kensington on YouTube and you see the videos of the walkthroughs and the drive-throughs of Kensington, it's rough. I mean, I basically grew up in Crenshaw, California. That's where I worked every day for 10 years in the Crenshaw district, which is, pretty rough. And Kensington is right up there. It's rough. So, and that's where a lot of the rioting was going on. So literally a mile away. And, with a little girl and, every night there was gunshots, there was fireworks, there was screeching tires, loud noises, and you just didn't feel safe. So we made the move to Media, which is about 25 minutes outside of Philadelphia. Completely different world. They just kind of let you do you. We would go to diners, and, they would say, mask if you want to, but, you don't have to. So, and then it was a good 5 or 6 months before we found the school that actually didn't enforce masks. And what they said to me, which was kind of eye-opening, was we don't enforce the mask. We actually don't want them to wear masks because at this age, they're snot and there all kinds of things are going on. And if you're wearing the mask, it all gets stuck in there and there's no way to really address it. So they didn't like the mask, and we're like, oh, I didn't even think of that. So she started going to that school, and she's luckily never had to wear a mask. We've traveled through COVID, gone on airplanes and whatnot. And obviously my wife and I, we had to wear masks up until my daughter was 2. She didn't have to. They didn't enforce that. And now, planes don't enforce it. The airports don't enforce it at all. So luckily my daughter, and it's funny because sometimes she wants to wear a mask. Like when we actually had to take her to the doctor today, and she wanted to wear her mask. So, it's not like we force it. We don't force her to not wear it. And, she was ready to take it off as soon as we got out of the doctor's office. So we just kind of, our freedom pushers, I guess, for lack of a better term. So to answer your question, it didn't really affect us too much. The only time that COVID ever affected us is when we flew back to Los Angeles for Thanksgiving, and because we weren't fully vaccinated and we didn't want to wear a mask, we had to have on my father's side, we had to have a separate dinner. So we got there at 3:00, left at 6:00, so that the rest of the family could come at 6 and have the regular dinner. And our dinner was literally us, my wife, I, and my daughter, and 4 other people. So that, to me, that affected me a lot. It really showed, like, if it were the other way around, if I were fully vaccinated and masked and it was the holidays, I would rather risk death from this whole COVID thing to spend time with my family than be scared and seclude part of my family from, and we're from Pennsylvania. It's not like, or we're in Pennsylvania. It's not like we're in LA where we could see each other whenever we want. This is a thing where it's even hard to get out there for the holidays. And that's the only time that we can really kind of get out there, as far as taking time off of work and all of that stuff. And you don't want to see us because of this. So emotionally, mentally, that affected us a lot, because it's kind of like, if it were the other way around, I would die for my family. And that just doesn't seem to be the case, going the other way around.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I would say freedom fighter, at least not as vocal as probably some of the other folks were, as you could probably see on the news. But it's tough too. In fact, yours actually, you expanded on a little bit more, because most people just tell their story about how it gave them a little bit of blessing to be able to start a project on, like, YouTube, for instance. I don't know how many episodes you've seen from my podcast, but that's been, like, the biggest response I've gotten from people. And then others, like yours, is more of an exceptional one, because you got COVID and then probably struggled a little bit and then were able to recuperate and stuff like that. Yours, you really wanted to get together with your family and stuff like that, and then try to make sure your daughter has a good psychological development in school, so she's able to make friends, be able to interact with people and stuff like that. So yours is actually a really good, interesting story too. So, and I can see why people have criticized, like, the mask doesn't really do much of anything or stuff like that. Like, we really want to have that sense of normalcy back. So I don't know if it ever will, to be honest. So it'll be interesting to see what this year and beyond's gonna do, especially hindsight's now technically 2020, as they would say. So we'll have to see what happens. So God bless you, man. Take care.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so let's see. I think we're at this part of the podcast where now I give my interviewees a little bit of freedom to ask me anything, or if there's anything you'd like to get off your chest. So, fire away.
Cool. Yeah, man. I did take a look at your channel. I actually didn't realize I wasn't subscribed until today, so I hit that subscribe button. So you guys better hit the subscribe button too. Brian's cool channel. He's got some cool covers, a lot of metal covers that are interesting, because I am not a metal guy. I dabble in it once in a while, but you metal guys are, I envy you, because it's not something that comes to me easy. So, but I love, certain metal bands, especially back in the 90s, like Pantera and Sepultura, the Metallica, there's some Megadeth. Those are some of my favorite from back then. But yeah, I just could never, I would try to play along to Lars, and he's just got his unique style, and it's just not something that gels well with me. But Pantera, Vinnie Paul, I love Vinnie Paul. I thought he had such like a great style to him. He's one of those guys actually that can do a little bit of everything. He can groove, but he can also just thrash away. And I just thought he was like one of the best. But yeah, your channel is a really cool one. I did watch a couple of the other interviews, in particular the one with Joey Clark. Joey's a really cool guy, very very talented as well. So yeah, I just was wondering, like, how long have you been doing it, and what are your goals? Because I feel like you've got a pretty legitimate channel. I don't know how long you've been doing it, but obviously, you probably want to grow that subscriber count, right?
Yeah, eventually. Uh, did you mean in terms of the podcast or the whole channel in general?
Um, yeah, the whole. I mean, if I were to kind of not rate, but if I were to say anything about the channel, I think the interviews are actually, really good. I think you have some good questions. Um, you've done a lot of them from what I could see. So I think that's a strong point. Also the covers. I haven't really checked out anything else you've done. You said you also do lessons.
I don't do any lessons. No, I'm not
No.
that very good, to be honest. I'm actually just a self-taught teacher, and I just managed to get music theory on my own just from doing rock bands, stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
But getting to your other question, let's see. It actually was back in 2020, but 2021 was where I perhaps focused on it a little bit more. 2020 was just post a couple videos and see what it does, that sort of thing. But I started taking it more seriously in 2021. And it was just more drum covers at the time. I tried a couple of vlogs, but the vlogs turned out to be a little too much. It was getting a little hard to do, and I was kind of running out of ideas. But I started the podcast this year, and I got a friend of mine. That was back in February of this year. And a good friend of mine from Nashville, we went to college together. That was my first interview. And then after that, I was trying to think of like who else to kind of interview, try to like differentiate myself, because originally I was going to do like a lot of the same people that Drumman 190 was interviewing too, like the SJC drums. And I think there was a couple of other guys. I don't know. I don't think he got Thomas Lang. He might have got Thomas Lang. I'm not sure, but I saw his, and then I saw Drummer's Key when he invited Chris Lupica, aka Throwback Drummer, who's also a Philly guy. And that one kind of caused the light bulb to go off in my head. I think like, well, maybe I can interview drummers in this drumming community and then see where it goes. And it's been great because I made a lot more than I did all of last year, so I'm totally happy about it. So thank you to all out there. It's been a blessing.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And I noticed too, are you like a electronic guy? You ever think about going to acoustic?
Well, the funny thing was, when I got into drumming, that was the thing my parents were a little worried about, because it's not very good insulated here. So if I was playing an acoustic set, it would be heard all throughout the house. So it would not give anybody a moment of peace, especially during the nighttime, because I was playing on it last night. I'm thinking like, I hope they don't come down here, because I'm really enjoying myself on my electric kit, because the hard padding, whenever you're really into it too, it travels up through the vents and everything. But if I wanted to, like, as I said, if you wanted to integrate, have the electronic as a percussion or something like that, and then have just a regular acoustic set, I feel like the biggest thing is more so in terms of tuning, and then just finding the right sound for whatever song you wanted to cover, for instance. So that's the biggest gripe I have for like or acoustic sets. Sorry, a little tongue tied there, but acoustic sets, yeah. So that's pretty much my biggest gripe for it. But I've been kind of rolling with the TD Roland 25K for a good while. So, and really, to be honest, I've loved every moment of it. And I got a couple of covers I got to do today, because I did a drum collaboration with Joaquin from Mexico. So
yeah, he's awesome.
He is real chill guy. In fact, I interviewed him too, and I think his podcast interview has the most views so far. So I think he's just shy of 200. So he's getting there. He's getting there.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. You were talking earlier about sports and whatnot, and so I was wondering. You said you're in Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
Are you all for sports or any sports?
I forget what the fourth one is, but I know. I wouldn't say I'm a diehard fan because unfortunately I have a hard time trying to watch when any team's playing in the playoffs because I feel like it's going to give me a heart attack or stuff like that. So, but I do like the Penguins, the Steelers. I've kind of losing faith here with the Pirates because they just seem to be on and off at times. It looks like they have it there, and then they slump, and then what do you know? It's kind of another losing season. So it's a little bit of a shame. So unfortunately, I have to take flack for that. I think they did a USFL football team. I think that's what it was, or
Oh yeah, you guys don't have a basketball team, right?
yeah, we no, we. I'm trying to remember the story. Maybe they might have had one back in the day, but I don't think it lasted very long. So no, they. I kind of wish they would because I feel like that would really help, or something like that, or if they wanted to just use the PPG Paints Arena for it. I don't know
Yeah.
because I think it takes place during hockey season, so I think it would be pretty hard. So, uh, I haven't really watched the USFL too much. It seems like it was going to be another failed football project, as you probably saw with the XFL and stuff like
Yeah.
that, because
Yeah.
you just don't get the same quality of players as you'd see in the NFL. So I really would like it to succeed because I think it is another moneymaker, and I think it would get those other guys who don't get drafted to do something else. So
Yeah, totally. Do you play anything?
sports wise,
Yeah.
used to do football, but that was I retired after my last year in college, and really not much. I don't know if they have a deck hockey team here. That would actually be nice because I know a couple cousins of mine that got involved in deck hockey, and they came down here. They live a little bit up north, but nah, not really. It would be nice to probably get back into some sports, but at the moment it's a little tough doing two jobs and the YouTube channel with a podcast too. So you can probably imagine.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, uh, I'm 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 lucky enough to, I work on my own for myself, from home. So, my office is here. Same with my drum stuff. So any break I get in video editing or graphic design, I just hop on the kit and play away. So yeah, otherwise I'm taking care of the kids or playing hockey. I've been super blessed. I know that a lot of people are not as fortunate. Um, so I don't take it for granted. I try to live in the moment, and every other day or so I just pinch myself and just make sure it's all real. Just because I don't think I can imagine a better life. And that's the one thing that I wish for everybody is to be able to find their happiness. It might not necessarily mean being a billionaire or anything like that. But there's so much junk out in the world, and sometimes you just gotta persevere through all that just to find your happiness. I know I did. I know I've been through a lot of low periods in my life, but I would do them all over again if I knew I would end up in this position here. So yeah, I mean, maybe talking to you now, I just wonder, like, where you're at in your life. Are you content? Are there things that you want to kind of strive to and get to?
Well, it's a little tough because I'm in a comfortable position. Like I still got a job. I'm still working from home, which I'm gonna milk every inch of the way, to be honest. Because I am not going back in the office because the group I'm in is just really a small group. There's like just me and one other person, so I don't really see a need to go in the office at all. So, while it is a good job and people are nice, especially in both jobs that I work in, I would say doing something like this feels like it's a calling too. And I know I also wanted to get into writing as well because I got 2 short stories down. I just need to get the final editing down and then see how they get it published and everything, which seems like a complicated thing in and of itself too, because it seems like you have to go through so many tiers of the editor process, as I would probably call it. So I feel like that's really a calling too. So I'm doing this, and then I think the only reason why I'd stick around in my main job would just be for the insurance too afterwards. But to be perfectly honest, I would say content as of now. It is a lot on my mind, and I think it's kind of affecting me. So I think maybe after next week, just take a little breather and maybe see what I could do to improve myself better. So I'm able to schedule everything out perfectly, so I'm not overwhelming myself each day, especially now when you got to go outside and do yard work, mowing the lawn and stuff like that. So
I hear you on that. I do a lot of I do all the yard work too, and it's not easy.
Yeah,
but it's cool that you're trying to be a writer. I actually have that's my degree is in creative writing for entertainment.
Yeah.
So I went to Full Sail. I don't know if you're familiar with that college.
No, a friend of mine actually had gone to that too, and it's an online college kind of thing, right?
Yeah. It's really cool. What genre and style do you write in?
It's what really comes to mind, but the two I wrote were kind of fiction, even of itself. It wasn't like anything fantasy or anything like that. It was more. Well, maybe I should say the one's kind of a historical fiction, but it's not technically true. But it was kind of based on a real event, but I kind of jumped it around a little bit to make it my own kind of vision. So they're at least somewhat true, but they're more standard, if that makes sense. They're just kind of the normal human interaction, stuff like that, and then probably lesson philosophy kind of learned sort of deal.
Awesome. Cool.
But I did have a epic novel or epic fantasy series in mind that I wanted to do because I've read a couple of those. Like, I only read one, which was from a Steven Erikson, his Malazan Book of the Fallen, and then I read just the one Game of Thrones book because we at least know how most of it plays out, but there's obviously a lot of differences between the books and the TV series, so I tend to get drawn to that, but I think as of now, just to at least get the writing down, I'm just doing genres that come to mind. Might maybe a little murder mystery kind of solve that sort of thing, so cool. Be interesting to see. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. Good luck. I dabbled in that as well. I have I would say 5 or 6 published short stories, online published. Yeah, it's not an easy world to get into.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry. I keep going. I
was just saying it's a hard industry to get into. Those literary agents and book publishers, they're no joke. If you want some real criticism, they'll be happy to give it to you.
I imagine so. So that's why it's a work in progress. We'll have to see where it goes. All right. So, got anything else? Any other questions or anything before we jump to the last one?
No, I mean, I think that's it. I think we covered a bunch of cool stuff. Got to maybe get to know both you and I a little bit away from the drums. So I think that's pretty cool.
Do you do like your own little podcast too, or is it just like a little talk show where people just come on your channel, kind of like what we're doing?
Yeah, kind of like for Cam Can Drum, it's similar, very similar to what we're doing. I have usually it's mostly it's either musicians that I've played with before in the past, like we were talking about, or YouTube drummers, and yeah, we'll just go back and forth, and I'll ask them some questions and try to get to know them, not just from the music standpoint, but from the whole life standpoint.
It's funny when you brought up Joey Clark because going back to his episode, it doesn't necessarily turn out the greatest for audio and sometimes video quality because it kept frozen at times and then the audio was off in certain parts. So that one was a little bit of a project to do, but I was still happy with the way it turned out. So it was good to interview him too. And we did our own little drum collaboration. We actually did one from Pantera. I don't know if you saw it yet.
I did, yeah.
It's killer, man.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it.
Vinnie Paul. And actually, I always like it too. Hi, this is Vinnie Paul from Hell Yeah. That sort of thing. Yeah. Rebel meets Rebel. Damage Plan and Pantera. There we go. Yeah, I was trying to remember all the groups he was a part of. So, all right. And rest in peace, Vinnie Paul. All right. So, jumping into the last question. And this is one that I've always asked my interviewees, because normally I like to see like kind of what the response is. And throughout this interview, you've kind of given your own little pearls of wisdom. So I'm curious to see what you say with this one. So, given what COVID has done in the world and affected you personally too, I guess what sort of message of hope could you give to musicians out there?
Message of hope. Well, I don't think this is going to. This might be a little bit controversial because I've recently become a believer in Jesus. I am a Christian, and I feel like if you truly and honestly embrace Jesus Christ as your Savior, that's all the hope that you ever need for anything, whether it's COVID, whether it's personal strife, whether it's anything else that's going on in the world. And this is coming from a person who was born and raised in Los Angeles, very much grew up as a punk rocker, anti-establishment, everything, was an atheist for a long time, was very anti-government, anti-anything that you could possibly imagine. I was anti-religion, I was. But I can trace back, and I know this is going to sound a little crazy, and Kelly's not crazy, okay? I can trace back a long ways where I can see God putting his hand on my life and kind of positioning me to stray away from going down the wrong path and keeping on the right path. And leading all the way up until I finally realized that it was God that was doing that, because I had no business being where I am now. If it wasn't for God, who knows where I would be. I'd be in some pretty dark and desperate places. And he's just pulled me through all of that. And it happened just because one day I started to actually listen to him, and I prayed, and it all just happened from there. So through this whole COVID thing, I would just pray and just ask God what to do next. And he basically showed me the way to manage my life the way that I felt it needed to be managed, and my family's life. And he's basically pulled me through this whole thing. And yeah, we haven't seen the finish line with this whole COVID thing, but I feel like we're right around there where the clouds are starting to part a little bit, and that we've made it this far and have not been really affected by it just shows me the power of God. And I know there's a lot of people that don't want to hear that type of stuff. I would have been one of them 3 or 4 years ago. And a lot of drummers that I met on YouTube have helped me to kind of be more open to accepting God. Earl Bennett is one of them. Sal, gosh, his last name is getting away from me, but he's like a huge drummer. Sal, he's got like 20,000 subs or something like that. He was one that I interviewed that was very into his Christianity. AR drummer Adam is another that is very religious, very faithful, and those guys helped me to just kind of embrace the Lord, in that it's not uncool to be Christian. A lot of people will say it's not cool. I used to say it was cheesy and not cool, but I'm totally on the opposite side. So as far as hope goes, if you're looking for hope and you're not able to find it, try praying. You never know what could happen. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work. You tried and it didn't work. Fine, that's fine. But if you try to pray and it works for you, it's just gonna benefit you, and that's what happened to me. So, that's my message for hope.
Yeah, I think the problem is people expect like the praying and everything and God to be like a genie in a bottle sort of thing. It's going to help solve all your problems. So it really doesn't, but it's more of like putting your mind to it too. But it's not controversial in any way, though. I'm hoping nobody makes a big fuss about it on any comments here. So we might turn off some people once they reach to this point in the interview. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But I'm Catholic too, so good to know. Got a fellow Christian here. And I think a lot of people in our drumming community are. Maybe some are a bit struggling, but I know Eric, he's pretty open about it too. Eric Henninger, drum
Yeah.
mag. Can't go Facebook without seeing like one religious quote on there too. So he's infecting us with his religion too. So
Yeah,
that's good.
it's awesome. I love to see that stuff.
In a good way, Eric. In a good way, Eric. We'll just say that. I love you, brother. So, all right. Oop. Gonna call from potential scammer. I'm just gonna not ignore that one. All right. So, I guess we've reached the end of the podcast, and boy, we've talked for a good hour. In fact, that was probably the longest we talked with the whole. When I talked about giving the interviewees a little freedom to ask me anything and stuff like that, because sometimes people don't have anything right off the top of their head, but yours, I think we talked for a good bit, so it was good to get to know you a little bit more. And I'd like to be on your show one of these days.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to set that up after we're done with this, and yeah, I'll definitely have you on. That would be an honor, actually.
All right, so like I said, we've reached the end of the podcast right here, Kelly. So I guess any other shout outs or any last words?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to thank Rich for hooking us up together, and it was a fun time. So Rich, he's always trying to push everybody and put everybody up on a pedestal, and he's an awesome guy. He's always supportive of my channel, and I try to be as supportive, although I don't think I can be because that guy is just supporting everyone all the time. So he's an awesome dude. We're actually part of a WhatsApp group. There's about I would say 10 drummers on that community, and we just kind of go back and forth, and we all share drum covers and talk about the world and whatnot. So a lot of those guys, Andrew Nelson, Rafa Correa, another guy that I think doesn't get enough credit. His name's Marco Silva. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with his channel. But
that sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's only been playing for a few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, and he's doing stuff like Rush, and it just blows my mind how good of a drummer he is for how short of a time he's been playing. He's also a police officer in Sao Paulo, so I'll be controversial again. I'm pro police, so he's a guy that I look up to. I think he's an awesome talent. He's an awesome guy. Also a writer too. He's got a couple of books out. So maybe check out his channel. He's a really awesome dude. Those are the guys that just kind of off the top of my head. Earl also, he's another one that's a very big influence on me YouTube wise. And a lot of his songs that he covers are songs that either I've done or want to do. So our styles are very similar, and he's a very big church guy. He's a church drummer, very religious. So, those guys are the ones that kind of are off the top of my head.
Marco certainly keeps himself busy too, especially being a police officer too. I could say pro police to a certain extent, but I think in terms of some of the stuff you saw, because of, not to get controversial too, but the George Floyd and I guess stuff like that, that's probably when they're crossing the line there, so you can kind of see why some action would need to be done there. So maybe some fixing in the department itself, but we'll leave that for a different discussion. So I think it needs some work. So, but it's good to see.
Everything needs. There's always going to be bad eggs, but most of the time it's good eggs in society. So, you just you definitely have to deal with it.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, so. Any last ones? Because it seems like you've definitely been a talker. I think you've been one of my big talkers too. So
yeah, no, I'm good, man. I'm good. I just had a blast, and thank you for having me.
All right. Well, everyone, today my guest was Kelly Kusumoto. Check him out, KMK and Drums. That's his YouTube channel and everything. How else can they reach you in terms of social media and I guess anything else you've done in terms of your writing?
I got a website, kmkendrum.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So, oh, and I have a Patreon that I'm working on. Got a bunch of like exclusive content and whatever. So behind the scenes stuff, and I do a couple of like full album covers, not just songs. So that's something that I'm working on. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, same with me. I'm doing a Patreon page as well, and I'm trying to get the final touches on it, but I want to put my writing into it so everybody can at least see what they can get in all the different tiers. But it's a work in progress, so we'll get there eventually.
Cool. I'll definitely want to check that out.
All right. So, Kelly, thank you again so much again for coming on, and God bless you, buddy. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, y'all.